Everyone in the city knew her name because they feared it more than anything else, because when you heard her heels click on the marble floor, it meant someone was going to lose their job. Her name was Claire Morgan, and she was the CEO of a giant company that owned buildings, banks, and brands across the country. People said she could fire a man without blinking and smile as she watched him walk away with nothing. They said she had no heart and no feelings, and that she even fired her own cousin for being 1 minute late to a meeting. Every Monday morning her office was filled with silence and fear. Nobody laughed. Nobody smiled. Nobody dared to breathe too loudly. If you made a mistake, even a small one, you would be gone. Claire sat in her giant office with glass windows and cold white walls, and everything around her was clean, but lifeless, like a hospital room, without any patience. She wore black suits with silver buttons, and her face never showed emotion. She never joked. She never cried. She never said thank you. Some people believed she was once kind, but something happened to her years ago, and she locked her heart away in a place no one could reach. New workers were warned from day one. Do your job. Do not talk back. Do not be late. And never ever ask Claire Morgan for help. But something changed on one cold Friday morning in late November, when the wind blew harder than usual, and the sky looked like it was holding back tears. Claire arrived at the building at exactly 7 a.m. She walked in without a word and went straight to her office, like always. Her assistant Mark was already waiting at her door, holding a folder with 5 names. 5 people she had planned to fire that day. One of those names was David Lane. David was a quiet man who worked in the building's delivery department. He was never late, always polite, always quiet. He was also a single father raising a 5-year-old daughter named Lily. David worked long hours to keep his job. He never complained, never took breaks, and never caused problems. But that morning, he arrived 5 minutes late. Just 5 minutes. The manager told him to go home and wait for an email. David said he understood and walked out without making a sound. Claire sat in her chair looking at the list. Her pen hovered over David's name. She paused for 1 second. Just one. Mark noticed and raised his eyebrows. "Is there a problem with this one?" he asked. Claire didn't answer. She looked out the window for a moment and then said in a cold, quiet voice, "No. Fire him." She signed the paper and moved on to the next name. To her, it was just another task, another number, another small person who didn't follow the rules. But that 1 second of silence meant something. Claire didn't realize it yet, but her hand had shaken just a little when she signed the name. Nobody noticed, not even Mark. Outside the building, David stood with his hands in his coat pockets. He looked up at the sky and whispered something only the wind could hear. He didn't blame anyone. He had no time to feel sad. He had to go pick up Lily from school. His heart felt heavy, but he smiled anyway because he didn't want her to see the worry in his eyes. Back inside her office, Claire sat still for longer than usual. She stared at the coffee in her cup, but didn't take a sip. The air around her felt even colder than before. Mark walked in again with a new report, but she didn't look up. He placed the paper on the desk and left quietly. Claire reached into her drawer and pulled out a small photo. It was old and faded and showed a little girl with curly hair and a bright red balloon. She stared at the photo for a long time, then placed it back in the drawer and shut it. Hard. She stood up and walked to the window. The city looked so small from up there, like toys on a table. She liked it that way. She liked to feel above it all, safe from the noise and mess of feelings. But something felt different today. She didn't know what or why, but the name David Lane kept echoing in her mind, and the words 5 minutes kept whispering to her over and over like a voice from somewhere she had forgotten. Claire closed her eyes and breathed in slowly. There was no room for emotion, no space for weakness. She turned away from the window and told herself it was just another name, just another number. But deep inside her heart, a door had moved. Just a little, just enough for the light to start looking for a way in. The bus was late. The sky was dark. The The wind was cold and biting as David stood near the streetlight holding a small bag with nothing inside. He had lost his job, and now he had to go home and smile like everything was okay. But his heart was heavy. His thoughts were spinning, and behind his tired eyes there was a storm he could not stop. The bus finally came with loud brakes and cold air pouring from the door. David stepped in and sat near the back. He looked out the window and watched the city move like a blur of gray and lights. He thought about Lily, about how she would run to the door, about how she would ask if he brought apples again because apples were her favorite. She always said they were lucky apples. But this time he had nothing. No apples. No stories. No good news. Just silence. The ride felt long. The streets seemed endless. And his hands would not stop shaking. He knew bills were coming. Rent was due. And Lily's little shoes were wearing thin. He had tried so hard. Worked every shift. Never took a day off. But none of it mattered. All it took was 5 minutes. And one cold woman who never looked him in the eye. When he reached home, it was already evening. The hallway smelled like old paint and wet shoes. The stairs creaked as he climbed to the 3rd floor. Apartment 3C. A rusty door with a smiling sun sticker Lily had placed there 2 years ago. He turned the key slowly and stepped inside. Lily was sitting on the floor with her drawing books spread out like a rainbow. She looked up and smiled the moment she saw him. "Daddy," she shouted, and ran to hug his legs. He knelt down and held her tight. Too tight. As if the world was trying to take everything away, and she was the only thing he could hold on to. "Did you bring apples?" she asked with shining eyes. David swallowed the lump in his throat and smiled. "They didn't have the good ones today, sweetheart," he said softly, "but I'll get them tomorrow, I promise." She nodded without worry and said that was okay. Then she showed him her newest drawing. It was a picture of him and her holding hands in front of a giant tree with red apples hanging everywhere. They sat on the couch together. She told him about her day at school, how she got to be the line leader, how she made a new friend named Zoe, and how her teacher said her drawing looked like magic. David smiled and listened and nodded, but inside he was somewhere else, somewhere dark, somewhere quiet. That night after Lily fell asleep with her teddy bear under one arm, David sat in the kitchen staring at an empty piece of paper. He wanted to write a message to his old friend Tom, who worked in another building downtown. Maybe Tom knew someone hiring. Maybe he could help. David opened his old laptop. The screen flickered. The light buzzed. He started to type. He wrote about how he had lost the job, how he didn't know what to do, how he felt like a failure even though he was trying so hard. He wrote about Lily, about her kindness, her belief in him. He ended the message with one sentence that seemed to write itself. "She still believes I can fix it. Maybe she's right." He clicked send. But just as he did, he saw the email address was wrong. His hands froze. He had sent the message to someone else. Not Tom. Not his friend. He had sent it to Claire Morgan, the CEO. David stared at the screen. His stomach dropped. He could not breathe. Why had her name even been in the list? He had emailed her once months ago about a lost package. And now the system remembered it. And now she would read everything. His sadness, his fear, his shame. He felt like the ground under his feet was gone. What if she thought he was begging? What if she told others? What if she laughed? He closed the laptop slowly. The kitchen was silent. The walls felt too close. He walked back to Lily's room and sat at the edge of her bed. She was still asleep, breathing softly, her hand still holding his drawing. David looked at her and felt the tears come. He had been holding them all day, but now they came quietly, like rain sliding down a window. He held her tiny hand and whispered, "I'm so sorry, baby." But then she stirred. Her eyes opened halfway. She looked at him and smiled. And in the softest voice, she said, "It's okay, Daddy. You can fix it." Then she rolled over and went back to sleep. And David just sat there, still, silent. But something in his chest moved. A little, like a light trying to shine through. The next morning the sky was gray and soft rain tapped on the window, like tiny fingers trying to wake the world gently. David opened his eyes slowly and felt the same heavy weight in his chest. He had barely slept. He remembered the email. He remembered the name, Claire Morgan. His heart began to race again. What if she read it? What if she showed it to others? What if he became a joke in the offices where he once worked? He sat up on the edge of the bed while Lily still slept peacefully beside him. Her little hand curled under her cheek like she was holding a secret. David walked into the kitchen and made a small cup of tea with the last of the sugar. The cup was chipped and the tea was cold, but he drank it anyway. He had to keep going. He had no choice. He turned on his old laptop again. The screen flickered like a weak candle. He checked the sent folder. The message was still there. Sent to Claire Morgan. There was no way to take it back. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. He had not meant to tell her anything. He had not meant to share those words. But deep down he knew something. Those words had come from truth, from pain, from love, from the part of him that never gave up because Lily never gave up on him. Across the city, in a tall silver building, Claire Morgan sat alone in her office. Her hair was tied back. Her face was calm. Her suit was perfect. But her mind was not. She stared at her screen. Unread emails, reports, deadlines. And then there it was. A message from David Lane. She almost deleted it without opening. But something made her stop. She clicked it. She read it slowly. Every word. Every line. And when she got to the end, she read it again. And again. She still believes I can fix it. Maybe she's right. Those words hit something deep inside her. Something she thought was long gone. Something she buried years ago and promised never to feel again. She sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. Her hands were shaking. Not from anger. Not from stress. But from something she had not felt in a very long time. Memories came without warning. A small girl laughing in a garden. A balloon floating into the sky. A rainy night. A car. A scream. And then silence. Claire opened her eyes quickly and stood up. She walked to the window. The rain was falling harder now. And for the first time in 15 years, her reflection in the glass looked unfamiliar. Not strong. Not sharp. But human. She turned away from the window and walked back to her desk. She read the message again. She looked at the name. David Lane. She remembered the paper she had signed. The one that ended his job. She thought of the little girl he mentioned. Lily. She imagined her smile. Her trust. Her tiny voice saying, "You can fix it." Claire sat down and put her hand over her heart. It was beating fast. But it was beating. And that surprised her more than anything else. For years, she had built walls so high that even sunlight could not get in. But now, one small email, one single line, had cracked something open. She didn't know what to do. She had never apologized to anyone. She had never undone a decision. But she could not ignore this. Meanwhile, David was still staring at his inbox. No reply. No new message. Nothing. He told himself it was fine. He told himself it didn't matter. But he checked again anyway. And again. That day passed slowly. He fed Lily some toast and jam. He helped her draw flowers on the wall calendar. He read her a story and held her hand until she fell asleep. Then, late that night, just before he closed his laptop for good, a new email appeared. From Claire Morgan. His hands froze. His eyes widened. He waited a moment, then clicked it open. It was short. Only a few words. But those words would change everything. Mr. Lane, your message reached me. Your daughter is right. Let's talk. Claire Morgan. David stared at the screen. He read the message 3 times. Then he looked toward Lily's room and smiled. Because maybe, just maybe, she really was right. Maybe he could fix it. Maybe something good was finally beginning. The lights in the office were low. Most of the staff had already gone home. The only sound left was the soft ticking of a wall clock and the hum of the city far below. Claire Morgan sat alone at her desk. Her phone was silent, her coffee untouched, her heart not as still as it used to be. She had read David's email again before leaving. Then she read her own reply to him. Just a few words, but words that came from a place she had not visited in many years. Now, she was standing in front of an old cabinet in the far corner of her office. It was locked. She had not opened it in over a decade. She pulled out a silver key from a drawer and slid it into the lock with shaking hands. It clicked. Inside the cabinet were three things: a small photo album, a folded pink dress, and a dusty red balloon tied to a string. Claire reached for the photo album first. She sat down slowly and opened the cover. The first page showed a picture of her younger self holding a little girl with bright eyes and curly hair. Her name was Emily. She was the only light in Claire's life, the only person who made her smile without trying. Claire had once been soft, warm, full of laughter. She remembered singing songs in the kitchen, drawing flowers on the windows, and watching the stars from the balcony while Emily giggled beside her. But those days ended with one rainy night. It had been a normal evening. They were driving home. Emily was telling a story about school. Claire turned her head to laugh at something funny. And in that small moment, the world changed. A crash, a scream, glass flying, the sound of sirens, then silence. Claire survived. Emily did not. After that night, Claire stopped being Claire. She became someone else. Someone who did not cry, did not smile, did not feel. She closed every door in her heart. She built walls so high that even her own reflection felt like a stranger. She became the coldest woman in the city. And she told herself it was better that way. Safer, easier. But now, David's email, and those words from his daughter, "You can fix it." They were like tiny hands knocking at the locked door inside her. Claire touched the old pink dress. It still smelled like the bubble soap Emily used to play with. Then she looked at the red balloon. It had once floated in a birthday party filled with laughter and cake. Now it was a memory she could barely hold. She felt tears rising, hot and sharp. She tried to push them back, but they came anyway, falling down her cheeks like rain that had waited too long to fall. She whispered, "I'm sorry," over and over, not just to Emily, but to every person she had pushed away, to every worker she had treated like nothing, to herself. The next morning, Claire arrived at the office before anyone else. She wore a softer jacket. No high heels, just quiet shoes that did not echo across the marble floor. Her assistant Mark looked surprised when she walked in with no folder, no orders, just a calm face and red eyes from a night of memories. Claire asked for David's file. Then she asked for his phone number. Then she told Mark to cancel all her meetings for the day. At the same time, David was sitting at his kitchen table with Lily eating toast and watching cartoons. He kept checking his phone every 5 minutes. Lily noticed and asked if he was waiting for a magic call. David smiled and said maybe he was. Then his phone buzzed. An unknown number. He picked it up slowly. "Hello," he said quietly. A familiar voice answered. "Mr. Lane, this is Claire Morgan." David sat up straighter. "Yes," he replied, unsure what would come next. Claire paused. Her voice was lower than usual, softer. "I want to speak to you in person. Today. Are you available?" David said yes without thinking. His hands were shaking, his heart racing. Claire gave him a time and a place. Not the company office, not a meeting room, but a small park near the edge of the city. The same park where she used to take Emily years ago. After the call, David looked at Lily. She smiled at him and said, "Is it the magic call, Daddy?" He nodded. "I think it is." And far away, Claire stood by her window, watching the sun rise over the buildings, feeling something she had not felt in years. Hope. The afternoon was quiet and warm. The sun peeked through the clouds and painted soft light across the sidewalk. Birds chirped in the distance, and the sound of a passing bicycle bell rang like a gentle reminder that life keeps moving no matter what. David stood at the small kitchen mirror, brushing his hair and adjusting his shirt for the third time. It was not new. It had a tiny tear near the bottom, but it was clean. He looked nervous. His hands would not stay still. He checked the time again. Lily sat on the couch, holding her teddy bear, wearing a crown made of gold paper. She looked at her father with curious eyes. "Are you going to see the cold lady from your work?" she asked. David smiled. "Not cold. Maybe just quiet," he replied gently. "She's not the same anymore." "Can I come?" Lily asked with a hopeful voice. David paused. "Not today, sweet pea. But maybe soon." "Okay," she said, and returned to her coloring book. David kissed the top of her head and walked out the door. He did not know what to expect. He did not know what he would say. But something in his heart told him this was important. Not just for work. Not just for money. But for something bigger. Something that could not be seen. Only felt. Meanwhile, across the city, Claire Morgan sat on a wooden bench in a quiet park near a small playground. She wore a light gray sweater. Her hair was down. No phone. No papers. No guards. Just her and the wind and the sound of children laughing nearby. She had not been to this park in over 10 years. The last time she was here, her daughter had been chasing butterflies and asking for ice cream. Now the trees were taller. The flowers different. But the memories still lived in every corner. She looked up and saw David walking slowly toward her. He looked surprised. He had never seen her outside the tall glass building. Never seen her without her sharp jacket and serious face. Today she looked different. Softer. Real. "Hello, Mr. Lane," she said. "Please call me David," he replied as he sat beside her. They both sat quietly for a few seconds. Only the leaves in the trees made a sound. It was not uncomfortable. Just quiet. "I read your message again this morning," Claire said. "It made me think about many things. Things I've tried not to think about for a long time." David nodded. "I didn't mean to send it to you. But maybe it was meant to happen." Claire looked down at her hands. "I lost my daughter years ago. Her name was Emily. After that day, I changed. I became someone else. Someone cold. Someone safe." David listened without speaking. He could hear the pain in her voice. The kind of pain that does not show on the outside, but lives deep inside your daughter Lily. Claire continued. "She reminded me of Emily. Not just how she looked or smiled, but how she believed in good things. In hope. In love. Even when things are broken." David felt something shift inside him. He had never imagined this woman had a story like his. That behind her strong face was a broken heart just like his own. Claire turned to face him. "I made a mistake letting you go. Not because of rules or time or reports, but because I forgot what people carry on their backs when they walk through my doors." David breathed in slowly. "It's okay," he said. "You didn't know." "I want to make it right," she said. "Not just by giving you your job back, but something more. I want to help you. Support you and Lily. And I want to change the way I lead. Because of you. Because of her." David's eyes filled with quiet surprise. Not from the offer, but from the truth in her voice. She stood up slowly and reached into her bag. She handed him 2 red apples. Fresh and bright. "Lily told me apples are lucky," she said. David laughed softly. "She believes they fix everything." "Maybe they do," Claire replied with a smile. They stood in silence again, but now it felt full, not empty. David walked back home with the apples in hand. His steps were lighter, his breath calmer. He could not wait to show Lily. When he opened the door, she ran to him like always. "Did the cold lady smile?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "She did." "Did she say you can fix it?" David knelt down and handed her the apples. "She said you already did." The next morning felt different. There was light in the apartment that had not been there before. Not from the sun, but from something inside. David woke up early and made pancakes with Lily by his side. She wore her paper crown and used a spoon like a magic wand. She said today is a lucky day. He agreed. When he checked his email again, there was a message waiting. This time from Claire's assistant. It was not cold or sharp or formal. It was kind, warm, welcoming. There was a new position for him. Better pay, better hours, and the best part, he could work partly from home so he could spend more time with Lily. David sat in silence, not because he was unsure, but because he could finally breathe. Across the city, Claire stood in front of a mirror, not checking her appearance, but looking at herself for the first time in years. Really looking. She saw someone who had been lost, someone who had been hurting. But now, she saw someone beginning again. She walked into her office without her usual heels, without her cold stare. The staff noticed. Her assistant noticed. The air was different. People whispered, but this time with curiosity, not fear. She called a meeting. She told her team they would be changing how things worked. No more fear. No more silence. People would matter. Not just numbers. Not just charts. Some did not believe her at first. Some waited to see. But little by little they noticed. She started saying, "Thank you." She started asking how people were doing. She started listening. And one day, she brought a guest to the office. A little girl with big eyes and a bright smile. Her name was Lily. Lily walked into the building holding her dad's hand and looking around like it was a castle. Claire bent down and said, "Hello, Lily. I've heard you're very good at fixing things." Lily smiled and said, "Only small things like broken hearts and sleepy dreams." Claire laughed. A soft, true laugh. The kind that brings color back to gray walls. They walked through the halls, and Claire showed Lily the garden she had built on the roof. It was a quiet place with flowers and wind chimes and little benches made of wood. Emily's garden. That was the name on the small sign at the gate. Claire knelt beside Lily and said, "This was made for someone I loved very much. And now I want you to visit whenever you like, because you helped me remember her with love instead of pain." Lily nodded. She did not ask questions. She just smiled and said, "It's beautiful. Like your heart." Claire felt something warm in her chest. A place that had once been cold and closed. Now open. Over time things continued to change. David became more than just an employee. He helped guide new workers. He shared his story. He reminded the company what it meant to lead with kindness. Lily grew. She kept drawing, kept laughing, kept reminding everyone around her that even the darkest days can end in light. People in the office started calling her the heart of the building. She became known not for doing big things, but for saying small things that mattered. Like, "You can do it. You're not alone." And, of course, "You can fix it." Claire began to visit schools and speak to young parents. She donated to shelters and opened programs for single mothers. She shared her story, not with shame, but with strength. Because healing, she learned, is not forgetting. It is remembering with love. One quiet afternoon, David and Lily sat under a tree in Emily's garden. The breeze was gentle. The leaves danced above them. Claire walked over and joined them with 3 cups of apple juice. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lily said, "This place is magic." Claire smiled. "It is. Because of you." David looked at them both and felt peace. The kind that does not need words. He said, "You know, when I lost my job that day, I thought everything was falling apart. But it was actually falling into place." Claire nodded. Sometimes broken things are just waiting for the right hands. And Lily, still wearing her crown of paper and light, giggled and said, "Told you so." And in that moment, in a quiet garden above the busy city, 3 lives sat together, once broken, now whole, all because one little girl believed that even the coldest heart can be warmed